I have a secret. Something I want to get off my chest. So I don't really want to talk about it because, you know, this could make you want to turn off the video and I could lose all the multitude of subscribers that I already have. So if you have the courage to continue watching, feel free. Shh, I'm a seeker. I'm not enlightened. I'm just a guy talking to a cell phone and having a drink. So what does that mean? Well, my name is Russ Rapp, as far as I know, and bringing you new ideas about non-duality. So take it for what it's worth. So, in saying that I'm a seeker, maybe you're thinking, well, who's this guy? Why should I listen to him? Why should I spend the time learning about non-duality from this guy named Russ Rapp? And that's talking about myself in the third person, so this guy right here. So, who should you listen to about non-duality? Who is enlightened? That's the question you should ask yourself. Is it Tony Parsons or that gym guy that's kind of the the understudy, I guess you could say, or is it Lisa Kant or Paul Hederman or let's see who else, Rupert Spira or some dead guys? How about the Buddha or Ramana Maharshi or Jesus Christ? Who else could you listen to? LMA or I don't know. There's plenty of people you can listen to that are way more enlightened than this guy right here. So what does that mean though? Are they enlightened and I'm not? You're not? Of course not. That's silly. Because no one's enlightened. Who is enlightened? No one. Get it? So the reason why you're watching this video right now is because you want to learn about non-duality. So let's talk about non-duality. So non-duality means not two. There you go. Alright, so what does not two mean? So let's think of, let's compare two opposites. You got life on one side and death on the other side. Life and death, right? So the separate self, the ego, that whatever you want to call it, the thing that thinks it exists, only believes in death. And what do I mean by that? So when you are born, when you exist, the piece that automatically goes along with that is the fact that you're going to die. So if you believe that you were born, that you're living, there's this uncomfortable realization that you're going to die, right? And so there's some people that want to fight against this, and so they look at life extension and, how can we put our consciousness into some sort of silicon-based structure so we can basically put ourselves into a robot so we never die, which is completely ridiculous. So on the other side, on the life side, you're saying that there's only life, so there is no death. So in a sense, life means that there is no separate entity. So there's no separate individual, there's no object subject. And so with life, it's kind of the absolute idea that there is no death because there is no identity, essentially. But I'm sitting here as Russ Rapp, the guy that's not enlightened, talking to you who's listening to this video, whatever your name may be. And so when it comes to the idea of life and death, essentially that's kind of another duality that really doesn't make sense when it comes to non-duality either, because that's non-dual. So let's get rid of the dual. So essentially there is change within the absolute. So what does that mean? So as a separate self, you believe in death. You believe that there's something that's going to start and stop, that there's action, reaction, cause and effect. And so there, as a separate self, you believe that there is no absolute because everything is constantly changing. There's always separation. And so that you're somehow separate, but this moment, if you will, this aliveness that exists, the question is, who are you in this moment? Because you're not this separate self, obviously. You're just, things are happening, this is what is. And that's what non-duality is pointing to. And so when it comes to believing in life, you can't believe in the absolute and not realize that things are changing, because that's what perception is. We see things happening. My hand is here, and now it's over here after time moves, and then I'm stuck behind a wall. So we perceive that things are happening. So that's, to the separate self, to Russ Rapp, to whoever's watching this video, that is what is happening. And so there's time, there's change, there's development, all of this is happening. So that's kind of obvious. And so what non-duality is saying is, when you talk about the absolute, this separate thing that's happening, this change, is not different than what is. It's just the identity with a piece of that something. And so when you talk about believing in death and then separation, you're believing that you are somehow separate and that you are not a part of the absolute. So the ultimate reality is kind of a mix of both, that you're both living and dying, but at the same time you're never separate, if that makes any sense. So what else was I going to talk about? I had a lot of things planned for this video. I think a lot. There's things in my life, that are just like what you're going through, with anxiety, with anger, frustration. But I think when it comes to non-duality, people that are looking into the subject of non-duality, they're kind of thinking that they're already kind of at that place where they have kind of stepped outside of the normal paradigm. They're questioning things, right? So when it comes to non-duality, the biggest the biggest what do you say? The biggest way that you can trigger someone is to call them a seeker, right? So if you're enlightened, you're non-attached, you don't get worked up about things. Life just happens. And so if I say, hey, you're a seeker, the reaction of the person that wants to be enlightened will say, well, yes, that's happening. There is a Russ Rapp doing things. There's anxiety happening. But it's not me. That's not what I identify with. Which in a sense is true. In a sense is a bunch of BS. Because I don't want to be a guru. My whole message to you, to put it plainly, is that there are no speakers, there are no people that are enlightened, and that you're not enlightened. Because enlightenment is what it is in this moment, in this non-moment. Let's see. Can you see this? I don't know if it's backwards or not, but it says, "Mi Patronus es cocktail." And there's a picture of Harry Potter glasses. So, and full disclosure, there's a little bit of vodka in that. So that means that, even people that claim to be, no, I don't claim to be enlightened. Enlightenment is what your true nature is. So there is no enlightenment for a specific person. And so if you watch videos of people, or if you go to retreats, or you see speakers and they talk about, hey, let's do this and that, none of that crap matters. Because they're not enlightened. They still put their pant leg on one leg at a time, or they pull up their skirt, whatever they were wearing at the time, or they put on their hood, and they their little robes and stuff. So then they sit on the thing and they look all peaceful, and that's what enlightenment means, which is a load of crap. But there are, just like there is ways that people can develop personally. I think the best way to describe kind of some of those speakers or teachers, what is actually happening, is not that they're they're enlightened. It's more that they like to pet their cat. Hi, Princess. And her name is Princess. Yeah, go figure. She's great. So, but when it comes to these teachers of non-duality, the whole idea is that I think what happens for folks is that it's kind of like losing your religion, essentially. And for me, the reason why I'm so attuned to the subject of non-duality or interested in it is the fact that I'm very aware of how my mind works. And so I see all the BS. So what ends up happening is kind of like the REM song, losing my religion. That's kind of the experience where when you talk about falling away or dropping away, it's just like you realize that there's a lot of BS. But it's almost like there's an emptiness or what you could call like a stillness behind everything. So even though all this stuff seems to happen to you or to others around you, it's kind of like that, because emptiness kind of has a negative connotation. So it's almost like a stillness where things happen. Hi, Princess. But it is what it is. And that's the whole point of non-duality, is that, there is no person that's somehow better than you or knows more than you. So what was my next point, Princess? What was I going to talk about? Let's see, non-duality. So what do you have to do with non-duality? Nothing, absolutely nothing. But what it does is it's kind of like talking about gravity, where gravity exists as a force, or however physics describes it. By me telling you about gravity or naming it has really no relevance to your current life, because you still feel the effects. It's still a part of your life. Or you can try to go higher in a mountain or go into space and get rid of it, but it's still just talking about what is a force that you deal with on a daily basis. So non-duality, I think what happens is, my next point was that there's so many definitions of non-duality. I think that when it comes to talking about the subject, it becomes kind of a religion when people take ownership of it and make it something that you have to do. And, trying to understand it intellectually is fine, but if you get into, what am I trying to say, Princess? So the idea of non-duality, is this too bright? There we go. How about we just turn it off? Oh, there's the real light. Okay, so we're going to go with the non-ring light. All right, here we go. Okay, so non-duality. So the idea of non-duality when it comes to your life, if you're looking up what it is, there's so many ways and definitions, because the mind wants to take parts of it and make it understandable. Because when you're trying to create meaning of a subject that's meaningless, you take bits and pieces of it and put it together and say, hey, this is what non-duality is. But the easiest way to understand non-duality is to know that it's both everything and nothing. And so when you're talking about something that's duality and non-duality. It's both. There's both duality and non-duality, because non-duality encompasses everything and nothing. And so the moment you start talking about there's some sort of non-dual awareness or state, or there's duality and non-duality, you're kind of missing the forest for the trees, because there's trees and there's a forest. It's just kind of how you define it, but what exists is still there. It's el bosque if you're into Spanish. So that's hopefully that makes sense. I think the whole origin of this video has been for a little while, because I had someone comment saying that, hey, you just seem like a seeker, and like I said at the beginning of the video, yes, I am a seeker. Things happen. I want things out of life. I get disappointed when things don't go my way, and that's just life, and there's nothing wrong with it. And the whole message of non-duality is, no matter what happens, you're never disconnected, and you are loved. And so you don't need to listen to me about what non-duality is, because you already know it. You don't need to listen to Tony Parsons and negate everything you have to say and say that there is no here and there's no me and there is no that and blah blah blah, because it's just a freaking mind. I was gonna swear there, but I'll keep it PG. So anyway, I'll stop petting my cat and I'll finish up the video and say, because a lot of times it's hard for me to want to make non-duality videos, to have the motivation, because I'm literally talking about nothing and not giving you anything, and I'm not the expert on it, because there are no experts. And so I enjoy your comments, especially the ones that maybe are slightly critical, because then it gives me something to talk about, and hopefully you found something beneficial from this video, and I hope